Hello, I'm Dan.
And I'm Simon.
And this is the Wikicast, a podcast where Wikipedia takes us to a random article and we talk about what we find. Simon, what are we talking about this week?
This week, Daniel, we're talking about the Snettisham hydroelectric power plant.
My favourite power plant in Snettisham.
If you told me that Snettisham was a real place, I would have laughed. It sounds like a made-up place.
It does.
Do you want to guess which country Snettisham is in?
Is it ending S-H-A-M?
It is indeed.
Is it in the UK?
There is a place called Snettisham in Norfolk, but it is not where this power plant is.
So this power plant is not in the UK?
Not in the UK.
Is it in Europe?
Nope.
Is it in America?
It is in the great state of Alaska. So, Eric, we're in your home territory, sunshine. By the way, Dan, we ignore the article for the next half hour or so. How the devil are you?
Oh, goodness me. Well, it's been a long time, hasn't it?
Been about 5 weeks, I think, since we last recorded. Not out of laziness or because of spite, but because we've both been, and I'd like to, if I may, Dan, say that I've probably been more so, extraordinarily busy.
Yeah, it's been a time.
A lot's happened. Since the last recording, I have moved out with Pixel Girl out of our old house, moved in with my parents, moved out of my parents' house, have bought a house, moved into the new house. I had my stag do. I have been on a filming trip. I've been on a literary festival trip. And this is the first week in literally 5 weeks that I've been able to actually sort of sit down and kind of do my job normally and actually record a podcast. So apologies for the lack of service recently, but I've certainly been busy. And what have you been up to, Dan?
Well, I've been sort of careering into the end of my first sort of half of my LPC and masters. Amongst other things, it was a completely mental month of music making too, which my bank account is very glad of, but as far as actual sort of time to get things done, it's proved slightly challenging, and I'm soon going to be coming to the end of what has been a fairly hectic 2-week revision period before I have my core LPC exam sort of modules before I go into the next semester, which then becomes elective exams and dissertation writing for my masters and all of that good stuff. So just ridiculous, really, completely busy. And yeah, I get 1 week off, week commencing the 11th of July, which I can't wait for. I need a break desperately.
Do you remember when we started this podcast and we had all the time in the world?
Oh, goodness, I know. It seems like an age ago. Well, I suppose it was. It's a long time ago.
It literally was however many 5 odd years ago now. Because I went full time on YouTube at the end of 2017. And we've been doing the podcast for almost a year, I think, at that point. So it's been nearly 6 years of this. But just how different our lives are compared to then. Like previously, I mean, certainly we had very different experiences at that time, because obviously undergrad versus postgrad. But generally speaking, we'd wake up, we'd have 1 or 2 things that we'd have to do in a day, and then rest of the time was jolly if you wanted it to be. Normally do a bit of singing, that'd be fun. Stay out, go to the pub, stay out, and then come back late, and then rinse and repeat, do the whole thing again. Yeah. Now, I own a house. I've got a mortgage to pay. I've got a job that takes me literally all over the world. The changes in the past couple of years have been nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy. There's so much to do. And
I've got to say, Dan, I very much miss seeing you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week.
Absolutely, I can't wait.
I'm going to be coming down to Exeter to see some of the singing. Unfortunately, we would have been. I'm pretty sure I would have been seeing you on Saturday as well for our friend Hugo Wickman. He had a party, but the shout out to the people who are on strike for better pay for rail workers. Frankly, all for it. Definitely, we need to see more organised union action. Anything that the Daily Mail hates is, generally speaking, a good thing. Mm-hmm. So well done for standing up for your workers' rights. It does mean I can't go and see Dan and Hugo and people like that, which is a minor inconvenience, but whatever. That's also just thoroughly dated the episode for when Fergus definitely edits this in the course of like a day, and I spend a week saying that I'm going to review it and then not putting it out. I'm busy, all right? I've got better things to do than to listen to me for an hour, which I could say for everybody listening to this podcast right now. Well, you've got better things to do than to listen to us for an hour.
Yeah.
But if you do listen to us, you could, of course, find out about the Snettisham hydroelectric power plant.
In Alaska?
In Juneau, Alaska.
Right.
Juneau spelt Juneau.
Ah, Juneau.
Juneau, the French part of Alaska. Oh, zut alors, a moose. I don't know what Alaskan people complain about. We are part of the United States as well. We are simply not contiguous. We look very small on the map, but actually our state is enormous.
Incredibly big. It's crazy, isn't it?
I don't know, where does the name come from? Is it a native language thing? Is it a name in the native language? I've just never seen that spelling before. I found out a fun etymology actually yesterday, Dan. Do you know where Tamagotchi comes from? Don't say Japan, you smart ass.
Well, I thought it was it was a name, like a Japanese name.
I thought that as well. Apparently not. It's a portmanteau of egg watch. It's a watch, which incidentally, the Japanese word for watch is a loan word from English. It's uachi. And it's a thing that looks like a watch that looks like an egg. So it's an egg watch.
Yeah.
Okay. It was a French surname, Dan. You were quite right. Alaskan City was named after Joe Juneau.
It was named by Joe, you know. I do know now.
Somebody that you used to know.
A miner and prospector.
His French surname derives from jeune, meaning young. So it is the French part of Alaska.
Boom.
And yeah, it's a power plant, 78,000 kilowatts, otherwise known as 78 megawatts, located 28 miles south of central Juneau, and accessible only by boat or seaplane. I love any place that is only accessible by boat or seaplane. I just think that's a really cool state of affairs to have.
Yeah.
Probably not, if you've got a medical emergency, probably not, but very romantic. Actually, I was thinking about this the other day. So obviously romance, we think of it as a relationship identifier, right? You are a romantic if you are somebody who likes romancing. But when people talk about the idea of, say, like the Orient Express being romantic, or sleeper trains in general, for example, being romantic, how would you define what that means? What does romance mean in that context?
I guess probably more pertaining to sort of like the artistic style.
But if an experience can be romantic, because I was thinking about this the other day, and I don't have a very good definition. I think the only thing I can come up with is it's the unfamiliar familiar.
I think if it's romantic, I would say it's like, it's very emotional, and it might almost be sort of overly ideal, you know, sort of rose-tinted, that sort of a romantic feeling of everything. Gosh, isn't everything isn't everything so lovely?
But that's what I mean about how it's like it's familiar, but it's unfamiliar familiar. You know, like it's an experience that is kind of everyday, but there's something different about it that makes it feel romantic.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that difference is.
Well, part of certainly romanticism, thinking back of like when I did my English side of my degree, one of the things that's really, really prominent in that, aside from sort of like the idealization of nature and the natural world, but there's a constant looking back to the past as being, you know, like, oh, you know, it wasn't, you know, like this golden age, you know, and the sort of past generally as something that was better, which would fit with the Orient Express, you know, because it is harking back to an era that is outside of our own.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a funny thing, isn't it?
I don't know. I was thinking about this the other day. I can't remember what sparked me, but yeah, it was just an idle thing. But yeah, that's basically all that we have on this article. I should point out it was completed in 1973. It's connected via a 44-mile transmission line, despite being only 28 miles south. Cue X-Files sound. And supplies 78% of the electricity for Alaska Electric Light and Power, which sounds like a David Bowie album. There you go. I figured that this is a tiny article, but I figured we had so much to catch up on that we could probably get away with it. Also, Snettisham is just a fun word to say.
It's great.
I feel like we can actually just, you know, let's just power through the podcast, because I think we're going to have quite an extensive thing, a lot of things to talk about in Critics Corner. I just got to sense that. So how about, before we do that, you tell me about your choral piece of the week, or so the past 5 weeks.
And this will be my piece of the week. Drum roll, please.
My choral piece of the week this week, Simon, is something a little different in that it's not really old and incredibly niche, as it tends to be. We're going to be looking at a modern composer,
Right.
Having written obviously a modern composition, and it is a composer that you know.
Do I?
Yeah,
Who do I know that's composed music?
it's the one, the only Hugo Wickman.
Oh, Wickman! Yeah, of course.
And Hugo, years ago now, arranged a really wonderful setting of Shine.
By Take That, which I suppose must have been 2 years ago, right? Because we did it for I edited the video for a pandemic sing-along type thing, so it must have been 2020, I think.
Yeah, so he's done an arrangement of Take That's Shine specifically for the graduation ceremonies at the University of Exeter. The chapel choir sing at the grad ceremonies every year, and of course this year they're making up for COVID years, so the graduation period is spanning sort of like 4 weeks, including going down to sing at the Cornish campus. So there's a lot of singing.
Are you there for a couple of days in Truro?
I think they're there for like a week.
Oh, what?
Or certainly like 4 or 5 days. I mean, I'm not able to go sadly because I'm busy working, but it'll be so nice.
That's the dream. That is the literal dream.
But we're doing his arrangement of Shine, and it's really great. I love it.
It is.
Obviously, there's videos too of the chapel choir performing the sort of the thing that really kicked the ceremonies off back in the day, which was the arrangement of Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen.
The Kingsinger's arrangement.
Yeah, which is great and quite it's a challenging piece of music, but really fun. And we've been sort of rotating pieces through the ceremony. This is the first week of ceremonies. But Hugo's arrangement of Shine has featured heavily throughout, and it's brilliant, and I've forgotten how much I enjoy singing it.
There's a great tenor bit in it, isn't there, where it's like, you don't know what you're waiting for. Yeah. There's like the way that he blends from the text into supporting lines. I can't remember it. I don't think that's the right words, but it's really good. Yeah,
there's great. So like when you move into the chorus, it starts in the tenor voices, and then as it gets higher and higher, sort of approaching a G flat, it then gets handed over to altos, and then moves around again. So like from a point of sort of like voice leading, I guess, if you like, it's amazing. It's really good, and he's a very, very talented musician. And yeah,
I cannot wait for the wedding because he's arranged "You're My Best Friend" for our first dance.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Which people hopefully are going to be learning.
I'm sure.
Really hope that people look at that music beforehand.
Oh, they definitely will.
But he's very, very good. Hugo is a fantastic arranger. Really, shout out to Hugo. If you want to pay him to arrange some music for you, I'm sure he'll probably be very happy to do that.
Absolutely.
Get in touch with us and we'll put you in touch.
But I thought it would be nice to sort of feature something a bit sort of, relevant, seeing as it's graduation sort of period now, and be a bit different, a bit modern. So my choral piece of the week is Shine, arranged by Hugo Wickman. For the graduation ceremonies. Speaking of which, as a little aside, before we move into Critics Corner, do you know who was given an honorary doctorate from the University of Exeter yesterday?
I saw this.
Stormzy. Dr. Mike Stormzy, which is extraordinary. And I watched his sort of address, and it was amazing.
I heard this, yeah. I heard he was really impressive.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And yeah, it was a real sort of privileged to have sung at that sort of ceremony and been a part of that day, and indeed for him to be a part of the day and being welcomed into the fold as a new alumnus of Exeter University, which is lovely.
I did that thing actually, and I don't know if you do this, where I saw on Facebook that I think it was the BBC, the big BBC page, had posted an article, and you see that it's got like 150 comments, and they're like, do I want to do this to myself? Do I want to read the comments? Because normally, on a story like this, you'll get the most racist, just garbage opinions being put forth on Facebook. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice. And it was a lovely surprise that all the top comments on the Facebook page were very positive about it and how much of like an inspirational figure he is, especially for young black men in Britain. And all the reacts to them weren't just laugh reacts. Like it was a genuinely wholesome experience, which I was not expecting on Facebook because it so rarely happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard uniformly positive things about his address, and you know, good on University of Exeter. As long as there's not someone hiding lower down the docket that they've given an honorary doctor to, who's I don't know, an incredibly problematic figure that they just wanted to slide in and distract people with Stormzy. Like, I wouldn't put it past Exeter to do that. Let's put it like that. Like, I love the uni, but it's made some bad decisions.
Yeah. Well then, Simon, I think you alluded to it earlier, but we've probably both got quite a lot we want to talk about in Critics' Corner. So shall we hop, skip and jump over into that corner of the room?
Swan dive into the best section of the podcast. Is there a best section? I mean, it's a low bar. So
Here we find ourselves. Smooth. Nice. Well done.
So over to you. You go.
Well, after that hop, skip, and rather large jump, we find ourselves in Critics' Corner. I certainly have some things I want to talk about, Simon. But why don't you go first? Because I'm not going to, well, put it like this. I don't think I'm going to be surprised about the things we're going to discuss. We're probably wanting to talk about the same things. So after you.
Well, I suppose if I had to, the big thing that's happening, and I should give some kind of critique of, is moving house is very stressful. Buying a house is very stressful. That's my review of the past couple of weeks. But it's been a very interesting experience. That's sort of. I do not even know how to like wrap my head around this for the sake of the podcast because there's so much to unpack, quite literally.
Yeah.
Although I will so I'll tell you what on a slightly more, because it is very positive news. What I don't want to do is bitch and moan for however long it's going to be, but I do have a story to tell about something else that happened between us moving out and between us moving in, which was from my stag do. My first stag do, I should say. I would like to review Warhammer Wells, very briefly.
Of course.
So basically, some friends and I who have been in the hobby for years and years went off to Nottingham, and we rented an Airbnb for a couple of days, and we played at Warhammer World, which is the headquarters of Games Workshop, where there are probably about maybe 100 tables, I'd guess, that you can book, and people turn up with their armies. And it was like the first outing I had of my Hawaiian orcs, which people were very complimentary of. People kept coming over and saying how much they liked them and wanted to take pictures, which was very flattering. But that wasn't the interesting thing about being there. There were two incidents, which I'll go through in all increasing interestingness. The first of which was I insisted, because it's my party and I can make up the rules as I like, that I wanted to play the game Wizard Staffs on one of the evenings. Are you familiar with the rules of Wizard Staffs, Dan?
I am indeed.
So this is, for the benefit of readers at home, this is the drinking game where you drink a can of something, and in order to have another drink, you have to tape it to the top of your previous can. The idea is, as an evening goes on, you accumulate a staff. And in retrospect, we probably actually should have done this over the course of the whole weekend rather than just on one night. But what we did, as well as this, was dress up as wizards. So me and my friends, and the pictures of this are absolutely not coming out or going anywhere. But I, for example, was dressed as Gandalf the Grey. I had my friend who was a lava wizard, like a fire mage from Skyrim. My friend Dan came as an orb ponderer. He literally brought the costume and an orb for him to ponder. Brilliant. My friend, I won't name them for fear of retribution, but one of my friends actually came as a fantastic cosplay of Scarlet Witch from WandaVision, which was not at all the cosplay I would have picked for him. But as a result of this, we got some takeaway. We ordered a Chinese takeaway for that evening, and basically the most normally dressed of us, which was the guy pondering the orb, was elected to go to open the door and when the doorbell went, open the door, get the food, thank you very much, and then then bring the food in. But what happened was the doorbell went off. Dan went up, opened the door. Hi, thanks very much. And as the guy was handing over the carrier bag full of a Chinese takeaway, he looked past Dan's shoulder, and what he saw was a collection of like 6 or 7 fantasy wizards all stood there, like like how meerkats stand when they're all a little bit nervous with like their hands folded in front of them as a group. Just all of us going, oh, is that the food, Dan? This poor guy gave us this look of just, what the hell is going on in here? Like, gave the food and very quickly left.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
My review of the experience is, if you're going to do something like this, maybe just hide rather than letting the delivery person think that you're in some form of LARPing, possibly sex cult situation. I imagine that's going to be a story for that guy as well. The other thing which happened, and I can give a uniformly positive review of, is whilst we were at Warhammer World, our patron saint, Lord and Master Henry Cavill, best known for playing Geralt of Rivia and Superman, stopped by and came in with his girlfriend to buy some miniatures. And it was a really bizarre experience all round.
I bet.
Because I was actually off. I wasn't playing a game that morning. I wasn't feeling. I had like a bit of a migraine, and so I was off assembling a kit that I'd bought. And my friend came over and was like, "Yeah, you might want to see this." And Henry Cavill was there talking to some of the guys who were playing on the table next to us, which they were playing this huge like 8,000 point game that there were like titans and like 30 tanks or something crazy. It was this huge game. So he went over and was like talking to them about the models. And I just so happened to have my surfers that I'd been painting up for the Hawaiian Orcs, including one who is based on Henry Cavill. He wore a Hawaiian shirt as in like an Instagram post. So I painted up the knob of the unit, and I was like, oh, I'll go over and show him. And I came within heavy bolter range, Dan. I was in like 48 inches of Henry Cavill. And then I was like the next person who'd kind of formed in this organic kind of line. Because that was the thing. The poor guy turned up, literally just wanted to clearly show his girlfriend Warhammer World, said no one ever, and buy some models and get out. And he did just get swamped. Like, so many people obviously wanted to come up and say hello. And so I wasn't going to like be a dickhead and push the front and demand that he look at this thing. I wanted to let him live his life. But I was like the next person who he would have spoken to, and then he sort of had to leave and moved on to the next thing. And it was just a bit like the closest I've come to like a real loop closing in my life. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And just utterly bizarre experience to be that near to somebody that famous and see, he's just a man, and how the patron saint of Warhammer was right there. He decided to come to my stag do. But yeah, that it was a uniformly positive experience. Everyone was very nice to him. Nobody was like actually kind of getting up in his grill. Security wasn't an issue at all.
Yeah.
And I like to think he had a positive experience. But yeah, what a stag do. Wizards and Superman. What more could a guy ask?
Incredible. Yeah. I mean, as far as a crossover goes, that's extraordinary.
But what would you like to talk about, Dan?
Well, it's fitting that you said the words wizards and Superman, because I'd like to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I have not watched any of this yet. I'm determined to, but I've not had any time.
Okay, well, I will talk about it without talking about it. How about that?
Does he kill Luke Skywalker? Did you see that? Somebody actually posted that as a question. It was like, do you think in the season finale he's going to kill Luke? It's like, what the fuck?
So the final episode came out yesterday.
Oh, I didn't even realise that. Oh, okay.
It was very exciting. There's lots of very cool little sort of throwback moments to previous episodes in the various trilogies. I enjoyed it. I think the writing is poor, but I enjoyed it.
How would you compare it to, for example, The Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett, if you've seen any of that?
I would say that. See, it's interesting, isn't it? Well, I enjoyed The Mandalorian and I enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. I think the writing across all three suffers from the same sort of failures. And that is, I think, the sort of episodic nature of the various TV shows, it means that they can very easily succumb to the weakness of sort of pointless stuff happening because they need to have a start, middle, and end for each episode, and then the broad theme of how the narrative sort of progresses across the series is present but weaker as a result. And because each episode needs to be a standalone thing, characters don't develop as much as you'd like. You get characters introduced at random points. They deliver sort of, I don't know, a paragraph of sort of dialogue, which gives a little bit of exposition about their character, and then in 2 minutes later they're going back on their word because the plot needs to move on. It's all of those things. It's by no means, I don't think it's terribly written. I think it's poor.
I have heard, so Ben from the Oxcast made this point about how every episode starts with a few minutes of something really exciting, nothing for like 40 minutes, and then like 5 to 10 minutes of something really exciting happening.
Yeah.
And it just gets draining. So what he was doing was what he called Lego bricking it, where you watch from the midpoint of an episode to the midpoint of the next episode.
Oh, yeah.
And then like that's where you take your breaks. I mean, of course, it's different if you just marathon it. But yeah, rather than watching start to end, he watches middle to middle. And apparently it's a much more interesting experience because of that.
Sure. I mean, certainly in this episode finale, that was a great episode, and there's some really amazing stuff. But yeah, I'd be really curious as to when you've seen them. I'd be curious as to hear what you think. But I certainly enjoyed it. I just think part of me wishes that it could have been a bit better.
I mean, I there's just so much stuff I need to watch. I need to watch Obi-Wan. I need to watch. Is it Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, or All the Time? I can't remember the name of it.
No, I haven't seen that.
There's oh gosh, people were having a go at me on the Discord the other day, and I say people, I mean Captain Reed. I was having a go at me for not watching Tick Tick Boom. That was it. Tick Tick Boom is apparently really good.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really good.
I need to watch The Boys as well. I still haven't finished Arcane. I'm halfway through Arcane and really enjoying it. I've just fallen into the trap of watching lots and lots of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Sure. I think really, aside from Kenobi, I haven't really been watching it. Oh, with the exception of on an evening when I finally come home sort of exhausted from library and singing and having driven over to Buckfast, or I've been covering loads of services at Exeter Cathedral for one of the lay clerks there. Our friend Michael isn't singing at the moment. So I've been covering all of those, and when I get home, the one thing I've been really loving is going onto iPlayer and watching the back catalogue of The Repair Shop.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Which is just the most wholesome, wonderful viewing, and I love it. And so that, aside from The Repair Shop and Kenobi, which is sort of, an interesting combination, to be sure.
What a welcome one.
Yeah, I haven't really been watching anything else.
No, I have. I have a big recommendation to make, and this is based on me marathoning almost every single video on this channel. There is a YouTube channel called Bobby Broccoli, which is... it's not his name. I don't know where the name comes from. But he makes brockumentaries.
Right.
Which is his version of documentaries.
I see. And
they are largely based on... things in the industry, in the world of physics. And by that, I mean there's a 2-part series on the Bogdanov twins, who are this pair of French reality, science TV presenters, who basically faked their way to a doctorate and then got it rescinded. And that's like an hour and a half in 2 parts. There's one about Jan Hendrik Schön, who's a guy who nearly won a Nobel Prize based on entirely fake data, and like how all of that unraveled. But the one that really got me, and the one that really got me into his content, was a series that he released recently about the superconducting super collider, which was going to be America's version of CERN. And it's a 3-hour, almost exactly 3-hour series in 3 parts that is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen on YouTube. And
oh, wow.
Like, I've watched a lot of YouTube, but the style of... It's like a video essay, that's a constant, like a continuous, obviously there's hidden cuts, but like a continuous 3D visualization
Right.
that is so well structured and so well written that it's like, the way I described it on Twitter was, it's like offensively good.
Yeah.
I cannot, if people are interested in longer form content on YouTube, if you like video essays, if you like physics, you've got to check this guy out. I mean, he's got 100,000 subscribers at the moment, and he's got a few videos that are over 500,000 views. It feels like he's just about kind of getting into his stride in terms of like actually making stuff. I'm pretty sure he's also a scientist, like in his day job. Like he's a postdoc or a PhD, and he does these videos. But mark my words, that channel is gonna. Oh, interesting. He actually joined in 2010 as well, which is when I joined. Yeah, he's gonna blow up. So
It's a good vintage 2010.
Yeah, lots of good channels. And me. So yeah, highly recommended Bobby Broccoli. When I was on my trips recently, so I was in actually I was thinking of you whilst I was on this trip, because I went to the Netherlands to film in Wageningen, which is like, I don't know, 45 minutes from Amsterdam. Took the Eurostar to Amsterdam and then the train across. And on the way, I downloaded basically all the videos this guy had made and was just binging them. But I was thinking about you because I was like, I wonder if I could live here like Dan did. Like on the first day, it was just like, I could see myself being here. And on the last day of the trip, I was literally cycling to the train station with a basket full of stroopwafels. Like, I'd gone full Dutch over the course of like 3 days.
It's an amazing play, and certainly, with it being so flat, the bicycle is just like the perfect mode of transport, especially if you consider getting something that's an electric, so you can go that bit further with less effort.
Yeah.
I mean, the infrastructure there is incredible.
The infrastructure in Wageningen was absurd. Like, it was so easy to cycle. And admittedly, it's a university town, so there was lots of money, which is going to be kind of featured in the video anyway. Loads and loads of money in the town, and lots of emphasis on students. But it was just ridiculous how the bike was clearly king. And, if you're a car, you just had to share the road with them. Yeah. Loved it. Absolutely loved my time in the Netherlands. I need to go back. Quite a few people have been saying to me on Twitter that I need to come and do some filming in Delft. So that might need to be the next trip.
Oh, it's beautiful there. Yeah, go to the sort of the pottery factories and things, and yeah, it's stunning. It's a lovely place.
So where did you live again? Was it Den Haag you were in?
I lived just outside of Den Haag, yeah, in a place called Leidschendam. Right. Which was it was about, I don't know, in a car, maybe 20. I mean, it's sort of the same, unless you're in really heavy traffic. The car or a tram into Den Haag would probably take, I don't know, half an hour. Right. Okay. 25 minutes. But it was lovely. I was there for 3.5 years. And then my family, of course, when I stayed in Australia, because we then moved to Australia, they then moved back. And my brothers were there. A brother, in fact, that you met.
Oh, God, yeah. It's probably best that you tell this story.
Yeah. So I had a message I've got 2 younger brothers. One of them has just been away for 2 months travelling around Europe. And the other has very, very recently just finished his graphic design course at Brighton University. And I think now has his heart set on moving to Spain and never coming back, because he is completely disillusioned and fed up with the state of things in this country, which I can totally understand and agree with. Yep, no argument from me. So Joe is wanting to move to Spain, and Ollie has just come back. And when he was coming back, he said he hadn't really had more than an hour's sleep for the last 36 hours, and he'd got off the Eurostar, and then was getting a train from London Marylebone up to Oxford, and he was on the tube and he recognised you, and apparently he came over and sort of said hello, and yeah, and Ollie said to me, I didn't think he, but I'd met him before. I'd spent quite a bit of time with him before, and it just did not click in my brain, because I'm not going to try and flop my dick on the desk here, but like from time to time people do come up and say hello in public who watch my videos, and it happens regularly enough that my brain thought, cool, very nice to meet somebody who likes the videos. Nothing particularly out of the ordinary about this. And I just had I'd gone into automatic pilot. I totally did not recognize him.
So I'm very sorry.
It's funny. It's a funny thing. I mean, I imagine it happened obviously with you being YouTube being a visual medium and you that being sort of the place that you sort of inhabit. It must happen very regularly. It happens occasionally to me in really odd places. I mean, obviously it happens quite a lot in Exeter by virtue of it being Exeter, and that, you know, that sort of explains itself. But I was up in Oxford a few weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I think, for my partner's birthday, and it was also that week where it was the week ending with the Jubilee weekend, and on the Thursday she was singing in a service at Magdalen College, which is where she's doing her postgraduate studies. And we were invited to sort of drinks on the lawns afterwards, and somebody came up to me who was a student there and said, "Oh, I really like the podcast," which was lovely, really, really sweet. And they are friends with a chap called Barnabas, who is doing. He did his master's and he's now doing his DPhil there, but did his undergrad at Exeter. So I know Barnabas very well. And it's one of these moments where you just sort of think, God, it's such a small world, but also not a small world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was really bizarre.
It was especially when I was making the PhD vlogs and we just started the Wikicast. I do remember on at least one occasion people coming up to you whilst I was nearby and saying, "Oh, I love your podcast." Being like, excuse me?
Yeah. I mean,
50%.
Definitely, yeah.
Like, again, we keep coming back to the past in this one. We're very backwards looking. Perhaps I'm just in that frame of mind, but
funnily enough, what was one of the first questions we started discussing at the beginning? This idea of the romantic and looking back, and you look, it's all come in one full circle.
Oh gosh, he's a professional. He's tied it all together in a pretty little bow, hasn't he?
Lovely, yeah.
Well, speaking of pretty little things, I can't tell if that's actually offensive or not. We should probably go over to Patreon Corner. Top lad.
And you all know the drill by now. What comes after Critics Corner? It's our favourite place, Patreon Corner, where we say an enormous thank you to those who support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/the Wikicast. And without your support at sort of whatever level, this podcast couldn't exist. We couldn't pay for our hosting. We couldn't pay for our amazing editor. We couldn't, start sort of accruing some funds to be able to do fun things in real person. Plans are afoot, but as we've said, we are quite busy.
To be fair, it's going to be, I was going to say recently, it's not like we've actually made any podcasts for over a month, which is entirely It feels a little bit rich saying, got to cough up now for the podcast we didn't make. But it's, again, not out of laziness, people. This is very much just us trying to work around our schedules. But we will be, I can't see any reason why the next 2 months or so we are going to be, we should be able to make regular pod again, starting now.
Absolutely.
Including, as you say, we've got some filming dates in July for you coming to see the new house and to do some filming here for a bunch of different projects, and we can splurge all of the Patreon money that's been gradually building up in our account. And got some ideas that we want to make silly videos about.
So it's my great pleasure to say an enormous thank you to those who support the podcast at top dog tier level, the clear supreme pet of choice for this podcast that assaults your ear holes on a sort of, semi-regular basis, with the exceptions of the month that we've just passed because we've been tremendously busy. But without further ado, can I say an enormous thank you to Jay Wright, Ben McMurtry, Peter Reed, Codzo, Colin J. Brown, Alistair Fortune, Eve Sharples, Lexi at Front Desk, Hasse Hansen, Henry VII, King of England and of France, Lord of Ireland, Aaron Jorgensen, Naf Laroque, Sam Harvey, Andrian with an N, Chan, Ben Caples, Martin Narciso, Christian from the Alps, Amy Bonney, Lexi at Front Desk's boss, and Carl Valdrot. Thank you so much, guys.
Whereas I would like to thank the genuine people who genuinely support the best household pet. I'm of course referring to those who are top cats. I would like to thank Jean-Claude Marais, Andy Hartley, Nathan Flaherty, Abu El Ela the Physics Boy, Simon P, Jack Easton, Izzy CC, Nafi Iftikhar, Dame Valerie III, Layla Medina, Oliver Craigie, Will Janice Humphreys, Rents Kirk, Oliver Burkhart, EZ, Omar Miranda, Cole Mansfield, Princess Andromeda, Isabel Ostrowski, Elizabeth rebooting, Lewis Watson, Matt Maguire, and Dan Hanvey. Thank you so much for keeping the lights on and keeping Fergus in pants. I'm assuming that Fergus wears pants while he edits these. If you could confirm that, Fergus, I would very much appreciate it.
I do wear pants, but nothing else.
Top lad!
And finally, we find ourselves in Correspondence Corner.
And before we carry on, Dan, I do want to just make a plea here for people. Obviously, we haven't been making podcasts for a couple of weeks because of everything we've been mentioning, but we'd love to hear from you. So based on what you've been hearing in this week's episode, if you have anything that you'd like to send in to us, things you think we might find interesting, if you'd like to react to the things that we've been talking about, please do email in, because honestly, Correspondence Corner is the best part of the show. Certainly, I think the most enjoyable part for us.
Absolutely.
We haven't had anything through, which is completely understandable because of, not making the show. But we'd love to hear from you, genuinely. So no email is too small or too insignificant or too badly written. We will, all gratefully received. But with that, I believe, Dan, you have an email from which we received just as I think we were recording the last episode, which you'd like to share with the class.
We do indeed. And the email is from Jacob, and it is titled Peter Fox Links, Student Experience and Movie Recommendations.
Love it.
Jacob says, "Hello Simon and Dan, thank you for reading out my email in the latest episode. It was lovely hearing my words in Dan's voice, and I appreciate him actually putting in the effort to correctly pronounce German words." Oh, goodness me. Correctly pronounce. I mean, that's incredibly flattering. I'm not entirely sure it's true, but thank you so much anyway. It sucks that Peter Fox isn't available on Spotify for you, so I have put together a few YouTube links to his songs. See Appendix 1.
You gem. Thank you.
Very nice. You asked what's going on in our lives, so I want to share something from the last few weeks. When I finished my exams from the last semester and sat down a few days later to sign up for the courses in this semester, I had to realise that the sign-up period for most of the courses that I wanted to take was already over. Being incredibly angry at myself and frustrated with the situation, I at least managed to sign up for a few language courses. But it didn't feel like I was doing enough, so in the first week of the new semester, I felt quite miserable. After those first few days, I had more or less accepted my not-so-busy schedule of 4 courses a week, and with that, I actually started to enjoy being back on campus again, which is not hard considering I get to study on campus West End in the Goethe University. Goethe. Oh, there we go. So what did you say? Correctly pronounced German words?
I'm also just Googling Campus West End, which I believe is in Seven Dials.
Yeah.
No, it looks very nice. Very modern.
Goethe University in Frankfurt. What I learned from this is that beating yourself up for things that didn't go as planned is not a good way to live, and accepting these mistakes and learning from them is the only way to move on.
Preach.
Absolutely.
Preach, he says, absolutely being too hard on himself for mistakes that happen outside of my control.
Yeah. I also decided to finally do a reading module where I should choose the equivalent of 4 books from a long list of important works in British literature, write abstracts about each of them, and do an oral exam at the end. I have already started with Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift. Good luck. I studied that in my first year and hated the book. Having only watched the film adaptation with Jack Black as a child, I was curious to find out what the novel is actually about. For a novel from the 18th century, it is surprisingly readable and enjoyable, although it can be a little exhausting to read through extensive size descriptions in imperial units. Yes, completely right.
Now, there is another appendix here, Dan, so I'll read them to you, and I want you to give me your impression of the other books that Jacob has had to be chosen to read. So you've already said Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift, Hound of the Baskervilles by Arthur Conan Doyle. Thoughts?
Yeah, good. Very, very good. Classic.
It's a Sherlock Holmes, isn't it? Hound of the Baskervilles.
It is.
Yeah. Atonement by Ian McEwan.
I have only seen the film. I've not read the book.
The Rover by Aphra Bain?
No idea.
Never heard of Aphra Bain. No, actually, that name does ring a bell. I'm not quite sure why. And then Poems by Robert Burns.
Absolutely.
Oh, interesting. Aphra Behn was the first professional female writer in the English language. She also lays claim to have written the first English novel.
Wow, that's really bad that I didn't recognise that name. I mean, if it's any consolation, I don't think that name came up in my beginnings module in my first year, which covers novels from, like, pre-literature, if you like. So we started off by reading extracts from, and then the entirety of Genesis from the Bible, and then Beowulf, and, oh goodness, what was the name of that other book? The Epic of Gilgamesh, that's it. Right the way through to sort of, modern stuff.
The first novel, by the way, or it's sometimes described as an early novel. It's one of the first. It feels like it's like anything in this field, I guess. It's like very difficult to determine what was actually first. Was Orunoko, or The Royal Slave, A True History, which is interesting that it's a novel that has a true. That feels like almost a postmodern thing to do, to have a true story. Sorry, a true history. Wow, that's really interesting. Centers on the unlucky love story of Orunoko, and that's Oroonoko, an African prince, and the beautiful Imwanda. If you told me to guess what the first novel, or one of the first novels in the English language was, I would not have described something like this. Interesting. And it's 1688
Right.
that this was published. So really early. Wow.
So that's restoration, isn't it?
Yes.
As far as the style and
Post-English Civil War. Wow.
Wowzers. Well, there you go.
We've learned
something
today.
new every day.
So overall, good impressions that we get. Dan Moore's review of your reviews, Jacob, very positive.
Absolutely. Jacob also mentions that we asked about opinions on Marvel films, and he'd like to give his impression on Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness.
I haven't seen this, by the way. Have you?
I have seen this.
Okay.
Jacob says, I really enjoyed seeing how Sam Raimi's unique visual style was present in so many scenes. I would agree. What really made me happy is that there are many great character moments and scenes with smart and witty dialogue which actually makes the movie work on an emotional level. I would like to mention, however, that the character arc of Scarlet Witch is a continuation of what happened in WandaVision, so while I think these scenes might work on their own, they do make more sense if you've seen that show. I've heard that too. I couldn't stick out WandaVision for very long. I didn't find it quite as enjoyable, no.
I really like WandaVision. I think that's the strongest Marvel show that I've watched, actually.
Oh, wow.
So that's interesting you say that. Okay. But you...
Doctor Strange I've always really liked. I mean, I think Doctor Strange is the Marvel sort of... He's the Avenger that I like the most. He's the I've always been sort of interested in that side of things.
And would you say that you enjoyed the film despite not having watched WandaVision then?
Oh, completely, yeah. I mean, I didn't enjoy Doctor Strange Into the Multiverse of Madness as much as I've enjoyed other Doctor Strange films. Right. Or other films that Doctor Strange features in, because I thought at points it just got a little bit too self-aware.
A bit too Sam Raimi.
Yeah, and I think his unique... There's something to be said about his unique visual style.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But I thought at points it was at odds with what I wanted. Maybe it was a little too unique.
I have heard very mixed things. I'm going to wait until it appears on Disney Plus, and I definitely want to watch it. And I'm certainly interested.
It is now out on Disney Plus.
Oh, is it? Oh, fantastic! Well, I know what I'm doing.
That's how I've seen it.
And then, because the other thing I've been told is that it's got quite significant horror elements, which I just want to see how that works in a Marvel context.
Yeah, there's certainly some sort of scary bits. But yeah, this is another thing that we need to discuss, like Kenobi, when you've seen it.
I've got some catching up to do. Yeah.
I would also like to hear your thoughts on Thor, Love and Thunder. There is already a teaser trailer and it looks like it's going to be an incredible amount of fun. I'm sure that's going to be brilliant.
I am hesitant about that. I don't know why. I just feel like the reason that Ragnarok worked so well is Taika Waititi took the Thor formula, as it were, and just completely turned it on its head. Did something completely different with the character. And that fundamentally changed the character in the Infinity War and Endgame, in the ensemble films. I don't know how it's going to handle being a sequel to a similar genre of film, if that makes sense. Like the thing that's interesting about the thing that was interesting about Ragnarok was what it did that was new.
Yes.
And I wonder if Love and Thunder isn't necessarily going to do all of that much that's new. I want it to be good. Like I liked Ragnarok a lot, and I want it to be good, but I'm just a little bit hesitant. I don't know why. I'm just a little voice in the back of my head is making me a little reluctant to be fully enthusiastic about it.
Well, I suppose we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go see it at any rate. Like, I want to go see a good popcorn film.
I like Taika Waititi's sort of style. I like that it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's very dry humor. It's dry, sort of occasionally dark humor, which I quite like.
There's that pirate show that he does. Is it Fear Our Flag or something like that? Which, ironically, the only way you can watch it in the UK is to pirate it. So I haven't watched it.
I haven't even heard of it.
Yeah, it's people, please email in with your reviews of the show, because I'm sure people have watched it. But it's like Fear Our Flag or Beware Our Flag or something like that, or Our Flag Means Death, maybe. And yeah, it's Taika Waititi doing a Pirates of the Caribbean-esque show, but it's very funny apparently.
Oh, cool! Well, I need to watch that.
But also the other thing I would mention is that the other thing that I think that makes Ragnarok work and Thor work is actually Chris Hemsworth is a really good actor. Like I was watching an interview with him, I think it was for Variety or Vogue or something like that, where he broke down, as you've seen, I'm sure you've seen these kinds of videos before where they break down the different roles, but it's clear just how deliberate his choices are and how methodical he is as an actor. And I feel like he's been overlooked a bit in that. Like, I think everyone's rightly praising Taika Waititi, but I don't know if enough praise is actually given to Chris Hemsworth. Like, he's really good at his job.
Yeah. Jacob also mentions the films The Northman, which I do definitely want to see, and something that you spoke about earlier, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
That's the one. Yeah, I really want to watch that.
I enjoyed each of them in different ways and would highly recommend them. And finally, Jacob talks about wanting to get more out of his Netflix subscription, so he has another recommendation, The Adam Project, which I've also heard a lot about, and I would be quite keen to watch.
With Ryan Reynolds, Zoe Saldana, and Mark Ruffalo. That's a pretty big cast. Holy
Jacob ends by saying, this email is dangerously close to getting too long. No email is ever too long. We always read them in full, but we just, sometimes for the purposes of the podcast, we sort of condense them slightly. So I'll finish by saying you are my favourite providers of non-content on the internet. Jacob, aged approximately 689.47 to the times 10 to the power of 6 seconds.
Love it. Very inaccurate now that we've left this for as long as we have.
Completely, yeah.
But thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Jacob, for your email. It was great.
And just to repeat my plea from earlier, please do email in. We love hearing from you because, frankly, the readership of the Wikicast is far more interesting than the hosts of the Wikicast.
Oh, completely. Yeah, it doesn't even come close.
So send us in anything. I'm not going to say we'll read any old thing, but we genuinely love hearing from you.
But we do. I mean, we do read any old thing. It's just whether it features in the podcast or not.
Yeah. Yes, that's a good distinction.
So, Simon, what have we learned today?
Today, Dan, we learned precious little about the Snettisham hydroelectric power plant, located 28 miles south of central Juneau, Alaska. The French part of Alaska. And we generally had a bit of a chin wag, catching up on over a month of having not spoken and a lot happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Including me moving house, you doing a lot of singing for graduations, getting ready for this first half of your course to be finished. God, it was very wide ranging today. We even had a cameo from Henry Cavill in this one.
We did. I spoke about the amazing arrangement of Shine. I take that courtesy of the man, the myth, the madman, Hugo Wickman. We discussed Kenobi and lots of Netflix recommendations. I mentioned my sort of passion for watching the back catalogue of The Repair Shop, which if people don't know what that is, it's a thing available on iPlayer, and it's a group of craftspeople repairing beloved objects that require sort of timeless handed-down skills.
It's like Baumgartner Restoration meets the Great British Bake Off.
It's incredible and it's beautiful and I love it.
I'd also highly implore people to go and check out Bobby Broccoli and email in with what you thought about it, because frankly, I'd like to make some videos in that style and I've got some ideas, but I would like to hear some ideas from our community as well.
And that's all for this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to us on your podcasting service of choice, join the Discord, and if you'd like to see our faces, check out our YouTube channel, Spongy and Electric.
Emails on anything, literally anything, and other thoughts on the show can be sent to us at spongyelectric@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Join us again for another tumble down the wiki rabbit hole. And we'll see you next time.